What do you do when your own family makes it clear that you and your child don't belong? Anna had spent years trying to please her parents, even after losing her husband at just 34. But after they uninvited her son from Christmas while spoiling her sister's children, something inside her snapped. This time, she wouldn't back down. Stay tuned to see how Anna takes a stand, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories about finding your strength and choosing yourself. My parents had always made it clear that they didn't want children at tea, including my son. But when I arrived at their house for tea one afternoon, there they were, my sister's 3 kids, happily playing. "These children deserve to be here," they said. I couldn't hold back any longer. I told them I was ending their support. I never imagined I'd be a widow at 34. Yet here I am, Anna, sitting at my kitchen table at 7 o'clock a.m., trying to get my 7-year-old son ready for school while holding back tears. It's been months since the accident at the construction site took David from us, but some days it still feels as fresh as if it happened yesterday. The first few months after David's death were a blur of paperwork, tears, and sleepless nights. I don't know how I would have managed without Mary and John, my in-laws. They've been absolute angels picking up Billy from school every day so I can focus on work. I stop by their house after work to pick him up, and every time they try to give me money. "Mary, please, I can't accept this," I told her last week, pushing the envelope she tried to slip into my purse. "Anna, sweetie, we want to help," she insisted, her kind eyes locking onto mine. "We know the insurance company paid well, but your family let us do this." She's right about the insurance. The company paid out $300,000 after David's death. Between that and my job as a marketing manager, we're doing okay financially. But it's not about the money with Mary and John, it's the love they offer us every day. If only my own parents were half as supportive. Mom and Dad have always made it clear that my older sister Lisa was their golden child. Now they extend the same favoritism to her kids over Billy. Last weekend was another typical visit. Billy was excited to see his grandparents, but within 20 minutes, Mom was already complaining about his curiosity. "Why does the clock make that sound?" Billy asked, pointing to their antique grandfather clock. "How does it work inside?" "Anna, can't you control him?" Mom sighed, rolling her eyes. "He's always asking about everything. Lisa's kids never give us this much trouble." Dad nodded in agreement and shoved his laptop toward Billy. "Here, Billy, why don't you play some games instead? Look, I downloaded some new ones." But Billy didn't want games. He wanted to talk, to learn, to connect. Meanwhile, Lisa's 3 kids were in the corner, glued to their phones, hardly acknowledging anyone, and my parents praised them for their behavior. I've learned to bite my tongue. Growing up as the less favored child, I got used to these comparisons long ago. Now, I just shake my head and stay silent when they praise Lisa's parenting while criticizing mine. At least they help occasionally with Billy watching him when I have late meetings or picking him up if Mary and John are busy. It was supposed to be just another Tuesday dinner at my parents' house, but the signs were there from the moment I walked in. Mom had made my favorite lasagna, which she usually only does when she wants something. Dad was unusually chatty, asking about work, about Billy, about everything, really. They were building up to something, but I couldn't figure out what. "So, Anna," Mom said carefully, cutting her lasagna into perfect squares, "we've been meaning to ask you something. How much was David's life insurance payout?" The question hit me like a slap in the face. I nearly choked on my water, completely blindsided by such a direct inquiry about something so personal. Maybe it was the shock, or maybe I was just tired of hiding things from my parents, but I answered honestly. "About 300,000, I said quietly. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Dad's head snapped up so fast I thought he might hurt himself. They stared at me, their faces wide with disbelief, as though I'd just announced I'd won the lottery. "Well," Mom said, putting down her fork deliberately, "what are you planning to do with all that money?" I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. "I've invested it," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's for Billy's future, his college education, maybe help him buy an apartment when he's older. David and I always talked about—" "But that's years away," Dad interrupted, waving his hand dismissively. You should be thinking about the present, Anna, about yourself and your family. The way he said family made it clear he wasn't talking about Billy. I knew that tone. It was the same one they used when they'd helped Lisa with her down payment on her house, or when they'd funded her lavish wedding. You could do so much with that money now, Mom chimed in, leaning forward eagerly. You could help your family, people who need it today, not save it all for some distant future that might not even— I'm not discussing my money anymore, I cut her off, my voice sharper than I intended. The silence that followed was deafening. They both sat back, Dad's face clouding over with that familiar disappointment I'd seen so many times growing up. Mom pressed her lips together in that thin line that always meant trouble. The rest of the dinner passed in intense silence, broken only by the scraping of forks against plates. I thought that would be the end of it. Knowing my parents, I expected them to give me the silent treatment for at least a month. It's what they always did when I didn't live up to their expectations. But to my surprise, Mom called just a week later. "We're having a family dinner on Sunday," she announced, her voice warm as if nothing had happened. "Lisa and the kids will be there too. You have to come, sweetie." Something about her tone made me uneasy, but I agreed. When I arrived that Sunday, Lisa was already there with her kids, all of them glued to their phones as usual. As we sat down to eat, she started talking about rising prices, bills piling up, and how hard it was to make ends meet these days. "Everything is just so expensive now," she sighed, passing the potatoes. "Your father and I barely have enough for a normal life anymore," as Mom dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, talking about rising grocery prices and utility bills. Lisa cleared her throat and sat up straighter. "I've been thinking," she announced, looking around the table with that same self-righteous expression she'd worn since we were kids. "Anna and I should help Mom and Dad financially. I'll send them $500 every month. I wish I could do more, but you know how it is. Jack's the only one working and with kids." She trailed off, letting that sink in before turning to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "But you, Anna, you should send them a $1,000 monthly." "Excuse me?" I nearly choked on my water. "Well, it makes sense," Lisa pressed on. "You earn really well at your job, and you only have one child to support. Plus, with your situation, you have other income now." My blood boiled at her careful avoidance of mentioning David's death directly. I wanted to scream that I was a widow, that I didn't have a husband's income to rely on anymore, that the other income she was referring to was meant for my son's future. But Mom was already clapping her hands in delight, and Dad was beaming like it was Christmas morning. "Oh, girls," Mom exclaimed, "you don't know what this means to us." I sat there torn between anger and disbelief, watching my family's expectant faces. The words of refusal died in my throat. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn their approval, and here they were putting a price tag on it. "Fine," I heard myself say. "I'll do it." The first transfer hurt the most. 1,000 gone with a few clicks. I told myself it was worth it if it meant more family support with Billy, but that fantasy quickly unraveled. "Mom, could you pick Billy up from school today? Mary has a doctor's appointment and I have a late meeting." "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry," Mom's voice crackled through the phone. "I've got such a headache today, you know how my migraines get." This became a pattern. Every time I needed help with Billy, there was an excuse. Mom was too busy, she was tired, she had errands to run, her back was acting up. Meanwhile, the $1,000 left my account like clockwork every month. One particularly frustrating Thursday, after Mom claimed she couldn't watch Billy because she might be coming down with something, I called Mary in desperation. "Of course we'll pick him up," Mary said without hesitation. "John's already heading to the school. He loves their little chats on the drive home. Billy's been telling him all about their science project." I hung up the phone and sat at my desk, fighting the rising lump in my throat. $1,000 a month bought me nothing but excuses from my own mother, while my mother-in-law dropped everything to help, never asking for a single penny. December crept up on me that year. Christmas had always been at my parents' house our tradition, our way of celebrating. The whole family gathered together, exchanging gifts, sharing a meal, creating memories. But a week before Christmas, the call came. I was helping Billy with his homework when my phone lit up with Mom's name. "Anna, honey," she began, that sweet, syrupy tone she always used right before delivering bad news. "About Christmas Eve." We've decided to do something different this year. We're having an adults-only party, no children allowed. The pencil I was holding snapped in my hand. What? I asked, stunned. We just want to do something more sophisticated this year, she continued, as if she were discussing a simple change in dinner plans. You know, wine, adult conversation. But it's Christmas, I protested, stepping away from Billy so he wouldn't hear. What am I supposed to do with Billy? Oh, that's easy, she said, her voice light and dismissive. You can leave him with Mary and John. They'd love to have him. You'll come by around 7 o'clock? When I hung up, I looked at Billy, still focused on his math problems, completely unaware that his grandmother had just uninvited him from Christmas. My heart twisted as I watched him concentrate, his little tongue sticking out the same way David's used to. The week that followed was filled with internal turmoil. The thought of celebrating without Billy felt wrong, yet skipping the family Christmas altogether seemed too dramatic. Finally, I came up with a compromise. I'd leave Billy with Mary and John for a few hours, make a brief appearance at my parents' house to exchange gifts, and then head to my in-laws to celebrate with Billy properly. On Christmas Eve, I drove to my parents' house alone, the bag of carefully wrapped presents feeling heavier with each passing minute. The driveway was full of cars, more than usual for our family gatherings. As I approached the front door, I could already hear laughter and Christmas music spilling into the crisp December air. I opened the door and everything seemed to tilt. The house was packed with relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins. But that wasn't what stopped me. Running through the living room, paper crowns perched on their heads, were Lisa's 3 kids. By the Christmas tree, I spotted my cousin Linda's children happily devouring cookies. More kids filled my line of sight, David's twins, Susan's teenager. The room suddenly felt suffocating, too hot, too tight. I stood frozen in the doorway, the gift bag hanging limply in my hand as the realization sank in. This wasn't an adults-only party. It was a party where only my son wasn't welcome. I stood there, unable to process what I was seeing. My Aunt Marie was the first to spot me. "Anna, sweetheart," she called out, rushing over to hug me before looking around with a raised eyebrow. "Where's little Billy? Don't tell me he's sick on Christmas Eve." Before I could speak, my cousin Peter jumped in. "Yeah, where's our favorite little scientist? Jake's been dying to show him his new chemistry set." More relatives gathered around, all asking the same question. Where was Billy? Why had I come alone? Each question felt like a stab to my heart, each inquiry twisting the knife deeper. I couldn't find the words to explain, couldn't answer what I didn't understand myself. Through the crowd, I spotted my mother in the kitchen, casually arranging cookies on a Christmas-themed platter, as if everything were perfectly normal, as if she hadn't just excluded her only grandson from a family celebration. "Excuse me," I managed to say, pushing past my concerned relatives. My feet carried me to the kitchen on autopilot, anger building with each step. "Mom," I said, my voice low and controlled, "can we talk privately?" Something in my tone made her put down the platter. I led her into the hallway away from prying eyes and ears. "You told me this was an adults-only party," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "You specifically told me not to bring Billy, so why are Lisa's kids here? Why are all the cousins' children here?" Mom straightened her Christmas sweater, not meeting my eyes. "Well, that's different." "Different how?" "Those children," she said, gesturing vaguely toward the living room, "know how to behave at formal gatherings. They're well-mannered." I stared at her in disbelief. "Well-mannered? Billy is one of the most polite children I know. His teachers praise his behavior constantly. Mary and John always say, 'Oh, Mary and John,'" Mom interrupted, rolling her eyes. "They spoil him, encourage all those endless questions. The other children, they deserve to be here more. They know their place." As if on cue, a commotion erupted from the dining room. Lisa's youngest son, Ethan, had grabbed a handful of deviled eggs and was throwing them at his sister. The eggs sailed across the room, splattering against Emily's new Christmas dress as she shrieked. I turned back to my mother, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, I can clearly see their superior manners on display." Mom's face hardened. "That's just children being children. But when Billy asks questions about how things work, that's unacceptable behavior. Don't be so dramatic, Anna." "Fine, I'm leaving," I announced, turning toward the door. I'm going back to my son. Mom shrugged, examining her manicure. Fine. Leave if you want to make a scene, but put your gifts under the tree first. We're opening them after dinner. Something snapped inside me. As I stood there watching my mother's dismissive shrug before I could second-guess myself, I walked into the center of the living room. I cleared my throat loudly, the sound cutting through the holiday music and chatter. Heads turned, conversations died mid-sentence, and suddenly all eyes were on me. Several of you have asked why I came alone tonight, I began, my voice stronger than I expected. Why Billy isn't here celebrating Christmas with his family? Lisa started to move toward me, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. I'm here alone because a week ago Mom called and told me this was an adults-only party. I was specifically told not to bring Billy. What? Aunt Marie's voice cut through the silence. But all the children are here. We didn't know anything about a ban on children, Uncle Steve added, looking confused. Mom stepped forward, her face flushed. Anna, this isn't the time. Oh, I think this is exactly the time, I continued, my voice rising slightly. Because you see, there wasn't really a ban on children. There was a ban on one child, my son, who apparently isn't good enough for this family's Christmas celebration. The room erupted in murmurs. I saw shocked faces, disapproving looks directed at my parents, and confused children watching the adult drama unfold. But that's not even the best part, I laughed, but there was no humor in it. While my son isn't good enough to attend Christmas, I'm apparently good enough to send my parents a $1,000 every month, and Lisa here sends $500. Lisa's husband, Jack's head snapped up. Wait, what? What $500? The color drained from Lisa's face as Jack turned to her. You're sending your parents money every month? From where? Our account barely covers the bills as it is. Lisa's composure cracked. Her face flushed red as she looked between our parents and her husband. I never actually sent any money, she stammered. Mom and Dad asked me to say I was sending $500 so Anna would agree to help them financially. They said if she thought I was contributing too. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched comprehension dawn on my relatives' faces as they pieced together what had happened. How my parents and sister had manipulated me into supporting them while simultaneously excluding my child from family events. You're telling me, Aunt Caroline's voice rang out sharp and clear, that you scammed your own daughter out of $1,000 of dollars? You're nothing but scammers using your own daughter like an ATM while treating her kid like dirt. That's low even for you too. The room erupted in overlapping voices, some expressing disgust, others demanding explanations. Lisa was trying to explain herself to an increasingly angry Jack, while my parents stood there, their carefully crafted facade crumbling around them. I raised my hand, silencing the ongoing arguments around me. I have something else to say. The room fell quiet again, all eyes returning to me. Mom and Dad stood frozen by the Christmas tree, their faces ashen. Lisa was still trying to explain herself to Jack, but even they stopped to listen. From this moment on, I said, my voice steady and clear, I will no longer be sending you any money, and I won't be maintaining any relationship with you or Lisa. I'm done. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked out, leaving the bag of gifts by the door. The sound of the door closing behind me felt final, like the ending of a chapter I should have finished long ago. Sitting in my car, I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. With a few quick taps, I canceled the monthly transfer to my mother's account. It felt like cutting off a chain I'd been dragging behind me for months. The drive to Mary and John's house seemed to take both forever and no time at all. When I pulled into their driveway, I could see Billy through the window helping Mary decorate Christmas cookies. The sight of him happy and loved brought tears to my eyes. We spent the rest of Christmas Eve with Mary and John, decorating cookies, singing carols, and watching Billy's eyes light up as he helped John arrange the nativity scene. This, I realized, was what family should feel like. The next morning, while Billy was still asleep surrounded by the presents Santa had brought, my phone rang. It was Aunt Caroline. You might want to hear how things ended last night, she said without preamble. After you left, it was like a dam broke. Uncle Mike stood up and said he couldn't stay in the house another minute. Then Aunt Marie and Uncle Steve followed. Pretty soon, everyone was gathering their coats and kids. I listened as she described how the relatives had left en masse, not even bothering to say goodbye to my parents. Some had apparently made very loud comments about manipulative behavior and family shame as they walked out. "And Jack?" I asked quietly. Oh, honey, he was livid. Packed up the kids right there and then, told Lisa he needed time to think about their marriage. Said he was taking the children to his parents' house for Christmas. Lisa was crying. Your parents were trying to damage control, but it was too late. I could hear her take a deep breath. I want you to know, Anna, we're all on your side. What they did to you and Billy, it's unforgivable. After hanging up, I sat on my bed, trying to process everything. My phone buzzed with notifications, text messages from Mom, Dad, and Lisa. Each one carried the same plea. "We're sorry, we were wrong. Please talk to us. We can explain." I read them all once, then archived each message without a word in response. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a peaceful blur. Billy and I spent quiet evenings with Mary and John playing board games, watching holiday movies, and simply enjoying the warmth of being with people who truly loved us. Then, on New Year's Eve morning, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole to see Mom and Dad standing on my porch, holding an oversized, elaborately wrapped package. My heart thudded in my chest as I hesitated, unsure whether to open the door. "Anna, we know you're home," Mom called through the door, her voice muffled. "Please, we just want to talk." I took a breath, then opened the door, standing firmly in the threshold, blocking their way inside. They seemed smaller now, somehow less imposing than they had just a week ago. "We brought this for Billy," Dad said, holding out the package. The wrapping was shiny, but I could make out the logo of an expensive electronics store. "He doesn't need it," I replied, making no move to take the gift. "Please, Anna." Mom stepped forward. "We know we were wrong. The way we treated Billy, the manipulation with the money, we're truly sorry." "And we want you to know," Dad added quickly, "this isn't about the money you were sending us. We really feel terrible about everything." I studied their faces, searching for any trace of genuine regret. "Are you sorry because you finally realized what you did was wrong? Or are you just sorry because the whole family knows and won't speak to you anymore?" They exchanged a brief glance, and in that moment, I had my answer. "I think you should leave," I said softly. "I don't believe you, and I don't trust you not anymore." "But we're family," Mom protested, tears welling in her eyes. "No," I shook my head. "Family doesn't manipulate each other. Family doesn't exclude a child from Christmas. Family doesn't lie and scheme to get money. What you did isn't family." They left eventually, still holding the unwanted gift, their apologies trailing behind them as they walked to their car. I watched them drive away, feeling not sadness, but relief. In the months that followed, I stood by my decision. I didn't answer their calls, nor did I respond to their texts. Lisa tried to reach out too, but I blocked her number. The money I had once sent to my parents went straight into Billy's college fund instead. The thing about cutting toxic people out of your life is the unexpected space it creates for healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Aunt Caroline began inviting us over for Sunday dinners. Uncle Mike and his wife had us over for barbecues where Billy could run around and play with his cousins. They all made a point of including him, asking about his interests, encouraging his endless questions. "Mom, why does Uncle Mike's pool have that funny smell?" Billy asked one summer afternoon. "That's the chlorine, buddy," Uncle Mike answered before I could, launching into an explanation about water treatment and chemical reactions. Billy listened, fascinated. I watched him blossom under the attention and love of family members who genuinely cared about him, not because they wanted to change him, but because they wanted to know him. He started calling Mary and John Grandma and Grandpa exclusively, and they continued to be our unwavering support, our safe harbor in any storm. What do you do when you finally realize that your family has been taking advantage of you for years, and your child is the one paying the price? Do you continue to enable them, or do you draw the line and walk away? For Anna, it took years of living under her parents' favoritism and manipulation before she finally reached her breaking point. After being told repeatedly that her son wasn't welcome at family gatherings, she snapped. When her parents demanded she send 1,000s a month to support them while simultaneously excluding Billy from Christmas, Anna knew something had to change. The moment Anna stood up to her parents at Christmas, exposing their deceit and manipulation in front of the entire family, was a turning point. She finally recognized that their actions weren't about family, they were about control and money. Her decision to cut them off wasn't just about the financial strain. It was about finally standing up for her son and herself. But it didn't end there. Once Anna stopped sending money, the rest of her family started to see the truth. Her parents' manipulation was exposed, and the family rallied behind her. By cutting out the toxic people who had caused her so much pain, Anna created space for healthier, more supportive relationships with those who truly loved and cared for her and Billy. So, what would you do in Anna's shoes? Would you keep sacrificing for a family who doesn't appreciate you, or would you stand up and walk away? Let's talk about it in the comments, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.